president does continue to believe that diplomacy is the best way for us to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. Getting them to make commitments on their own to shut down every path to a nuclear weapon and to agree to a set of intrusive inspections is the most effective way for us to handle this situation.
Well, welcome back to America's Forum. I'm John Bachman. Alongside me now, Miranda Connery. Miranda, the U.S. is 2 days past this deadline. Some are using the term double overtime for these ongoing talks, but it does seem like, and we've heard this from some of our guests here today, the U.S. is no longer negotiating from any point of strength, only from a point of weakness.
Well, that's a nice way of putting it. Some would actually argue that the U.S. is actually begging to try to make this deal happen. I mean, negotiators are closer, but will it ever be reached? A lot of people are saying it's probably going to happen. We'll see. I'm
not holding my breath. But joining us now for more on this is Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. He's the founder and president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, also the author of A Battle for the Soul of Islam, an American Muslim patriot's fight to save his faith. Doctor, it's great to have you with us, as always.
It's great to be back with you. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're paying a lot of attention to what's taking place in Switzerland right now, but through the eyes of the average Muslim in this country, how do they view these Iranian nuclear talks?
It is not only disheartening, I think the Muslim world and communities are realizing that not only is the United States missing in action, it doesn't have the back of freedom-minded Muslims, those who want reform. If you look at the Iranian media, they're thumping their chests. They are actually the ones in their fascist theocratic media saying that we will come to a solution, and they're being more positive than we are. So you got to be worried about what's coming out. And Muslims who are victims of genocide from the Iranian fuel and bombs and military in Syria. We see Iraq losing its freedom. We see Yemen unstable. All of these are at the result of the hands of the theocrats of Iran that have this end of times theology that just really gets the Muslim world worried. And then you look at the Sunni part, and the Saudis are being more belligerent. They're fighting a war now in Yemen for the first time in decades, launching operations outside their country. So every Muslim I've talked to says not only is America missing in action, the worst and most evil actors in the Middle East are filling in that vacuum.
But Dr. Jasser, shouldn't we be more specific? You're referring to Sunni Muslims, though, not Shia Muslims, because it's actually thanks to the Shia militia that they've been able to take back to Crete and Iraq. So are you hearing those same concerns coming from Shia Muslims here in the United States?
Well, I mean, you're saying thanks to Shia Muslims who are not part of the Iranian lobby? Absolutely. Yeah, the Iranian lobby that's been close to the president, the National Iranian American Council, they're all happy about this, but the Shia reformists who are part of the Green Revolution, they're not happy to see Tikrit. Yeah, absolutely, it's good that ISIS was pushed back, but to exchange that with a Shia militia that's in the back pocket of Iran is, as Netanyahu has said, you know, the enemy of my enemy is still my enemy. So ultimately, we don't have a strategy. We haven't really helped the third pathway in the Middle East against these two different heads of the same snake. And ultimately, we're sort of letting them sow sectarian divisions rather than using adult supervision for the West to be involved in the Middle East more so.
Well, Dr. Jasser, do you think the Muslim Americans in this country should come out in favor of support of stronger sanctions since these talks don't seem to be going anywhere?
Absolutely. The reason Iran is at the table is because of the sanctions. And while the president promised in a video a couple weeks ago to the Iranian people that lifting the sanctions will help, right now, as we head to so-called treaty coming out or some agreement, there's no assessment of their baseline capabilities. So we don't even know what the starting point is. The two major areas where centrifuges are being spun in Fordo and Natanz facilities, we have yet to have good evaluation. Second, what's the oversight? Nobody's been saying there's any clear trust but verify aspect to it. And third, what are their goals? What are their long-term 10-year goals? We're giving them a 10-year sunset, but no one said for the Iranians to come clean. I mean, they are an inherently dishonest regime, and yet we're not making them come clean about what their goals are for their program.
Dr. Jasser, we only have 5 seconds. Real quickly, should we have a deal with Iran?
Not a bad deal. If it's a good one that prevents them from getting nuclear weapons, yes. But if it's a bad one, absolutely not.
All right, we got more with Dr. Zuhdi Jasser coming right back after this commercial break. Stay with us. And we welcome you back to America's Forum. I'm John Bachman in for J.D. Hayworth. Alongside me now is Miranda Connery. And rejoining us now to continue our conversation is the founder and president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. Thanks for staying with us, Doctor. We want to pick up real quickly. You know, we have the situation taking place. We've mentioned the Shia militias and the Sunni radicals. We're really looking at a proxy war between Saudi Arabia and Iran in both Iraq and in Yemen, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's sort of very saddening to see Saudi Arabia sort of come across as our ally as we fight the radicalization that Iran spreads, because ISIS really gets its ideas from Saudi Wahhabism. So It's just a bizarre upside-down world.
Yeah, there's kind of been this coalition we've heard possibly forming between Israel and Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, and the only good part about this coalition is that my hope is that it not be a Sunni versus Shia coalition. It's apparently, yes, Sunni with Egypt, Jordan, the former Yemen government, et cetera, being behind it. But the best way, as I've seen some analysts look at it, is we look at it as an Arab versus Persian, if you will, division, because that'll prevent the religious sectarianism that would much more fuel radicalization than the Arab-Persian division that appears to be happening.
That's an important distinction to make. And what is your take, Dr. Jasser, on the decision by the Obama administration this week to release a lot of that military aid toward Egypt as this conflict between the Arabs and the Persians intensifies?
That's a great question. I think as we sit today, that's a very smart thing to do. The Brotherhood was much worse. President el-Sisi, at least in his rhetoric, has been saying the right things. We need to make sure not only that he's stable, but it's clear to the Iranians and others across that divide that we are not going to abandon our allies. So I think it's smart to do, but we have to hold them accountable. The attacks against Coptic Christians in the town of El-Or just a few days ago, that was from the same family of those attacked by ISIS. We need to hold el-Sisi accountable that they should be able to build that church, which he allowed them to do, but yet the people caught in those attacks were released. So I think it gives us leverage, and we need to maintain that support in order to have that leverage in Egypt, which is moving, I think, at least better than other countries, but still has its challenges.
Dr. Jasser, I want to go back to Saudi Arabia, if we can, for a moment, and talk about this blogger. You've been very instrumental in trying to get this blogger released. Tell us a little bit about him specifically.
I can't tell you how important this case is, because behind every case, as Natan Sharansky wrote in the Post a few months ago, is sort of the signs of what that society is. And Raif Badawi runs an organization, or ran one, called Free Saudi Liberals, no different than ours is. He was put in prison by the Saudis, convicted summarily for criticizing Islam, arrested, on trial, and convicted for apostasy and blasphemy. They set aside the apostasy laws and said, oh, he won't get death, but he's going to get floggings. And the floggings began a month ago, where he started to get every Friday 50 whips in front of a mosque, publicly, in front of the community, in front of the largest mosque in Jeddah. So we wanted him to be released. We tried to call the attention of our president to mention his name, to demand his release as a prisoner of conscience. And the Saudis yesterday sent a letter to the Canadians and other governments saying, you know what, stay out of our business. You don't understand Islamic human rights. They claim to be champions of human rights. And I looked at that letter and said, what happened to our values? As a Muslim family who came to America to be able to celebrate our faith and practice more freely than anywhere in the world, to see this government, in the name of Islam, treat this man and thousands like him behind bars so evilly, is just, the world is upside down. I mean, they're like trying to say the world is flat while, the rationale is otherwise.
You even offered to take some of his lashes for him, didn't you?
We did. Myself and 7 other leaders that happened to be on the Commission of Religious Freedom. Even though we did it on our own private capacity, we sent the letter to the U.S., to the Saudi embassy in the U.S. to say, listen, if you're going to do this, we might as well be flogged, and please put us in his place, because he will die if you continue to flog him. And they stopped flogging him, either because of the pressure, or they said because he wasn't medically able to continue. The ambassador never responded to our letter, and we're still pushing. And unfortunately, the president, because of diplomatic issues, would not and has not used his name and mentioned him.
Dr. Jasser, thanks so much for joining us today on America's Forum. Good to have you.